everybody, welcome back to another Blind Tuesdays. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel. As of late, as you can tell, we're in my car once again. It's just been busy these past few days, so excuse me if I'm just like, just having to do these videos late. Um, and also excuse me if the videos come out later than usual. I typically try to make the videos, shoot for the videos to come out around 2:30. So excuse me if the videos might be a little bit late, um, but we're back for another Blind Tuesdays, and for this week, it's going to be drama. And I was set on doing Beautiful Boy, actually. I was actually very much set to do Beautiful Boy, but I didn't get the time around to watch it, so I'm actually uh, just looking for films that I've already have seen. But this one, I probably would have saved as a film of the week, but just with the circumstances, I guess now is a good time as any to talk about this particular film. That being a Paul Thomas Anderson film, which we've not discussed Paul Thomas Anderson, I believe, on this channel. We've discussed him on news bits, I believe, but we've never really talked about his films proper. Maybe I've talked about it here and there, but never a singular film on its own have we dedicated any time to. So figured to dedicate some time for today in discussing Phantom Thread, which was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, released in 2017, starring the great Daniel Day-Lewis in what would be his final role, as well as Vicky Krieps, who would be making her. I'm not entirely sure if it's her film debut or if it's just her big discovery. The film that people will look to where she was like discovered as an actress. Um, but But yeah, stars these two, and Daniel Day-Lewis plays a dressmaker, a fashion designer, but I believe primarily a dressmaker or such. And he lives a very, very specific life. Everything is like right down to the way his food is prepared, to the way that he dresses, to the way that he moves around. He's very, very restricted and maintains a certain routine in his life. Um, and he has like uh, maintains a very much a specific order in the House of Woodcock, which character name Reynolds Woodcock. So one day he goes to a restaurant and he meets a lady played by Vicky Krieps, or Vicky Krieps, sorry. um, and The two form a bond, and she is brought into his life, brought into this world of fashion and all this sort of stuff. And she gets an idea as to who he is, starts to learn more about his past, and through this, there is as Becky Krieps at a very pivotal scene describes, quite a distance that is built between the two. And the film explores the desire for a greater connection and the sacrifices that are needed in order to get to that place, um, and to um, as pretty much an illustration of how we get to that honest place in a relationship. Um, Now, in viewing it from just how things would play out in Phantom Thread, it very much so is a toxic relationship. I mean, there is toxicities presented it specifically with how Daniel Day-Lewis treats Becky Krieps' character. Reynolds Woodcock, how Reynolds treats. I apologies, I forgot Becky Krieps' character's name, but I'll just refer to the as the actor's name so we're not confused. But in how Dan Day-Lewis treats Becky Krieps for a large portion of the film, it is very much so toxicity. Um, in gaslighting her, blaming her for certain things that she's not even doing, and creating these barriers, these walls around him when he is not given something that fits within his realm of routine or whatever. As Vicky Krieps says in a very pivotal dinner scene, that everything around him is pretty much a game, and she's not wrong in saying that. But what you get in Phantom Thread is, like I said, more or less just a exploration of how one gets to that honest place in a relationship, the submissive behavior that is required to get to sustain one's relationship, or to sustain a relationship between two people. Um, and an admittance to to sensitivities, and admittance to flaws, and an acceptance of just being that person and not having to present a certain figure, a certain character when they're around a certain person, or having to project or be a certain like image. They don't have to be that way. They can just be themselves, vulnerable if they have to. It's very much so what the film is exploring. Um, and it has a twisted nature to it, again, because of just how we get to that place. It is very much bathed in toxicity. Um, so there is a twisted nature in the overall delivery of its themes, but the ideas at play are very human and very truthful. It's just this utilizing it through the manner of toxicities um, embedded in their relationship. Um, but what you get firstly, I think, is two really great performances from Becky Krebs, who I think is really outstanding. I think she really, really stacks up to Daniel Day-Lewis, who, I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is Daniel Day-Lewis. He is a tour de force, as they say. I mean, he's a great, great performer. I would argue that Phantom Thread is his best work. I know that people would say that There'll Be Blood is his best work, but something about this, just by how he carries himself in this, there's just a you can tell on his face that there is this torment with this new element in his life, that being Becky Krebs. You can just see on his face that the dilemma, that torment, where he is building these walls and at the same time kind of peering out every so often, his true self peering out when you see that, yes, wow, I shouldn't have done that to her, or maybe that was the wrong thing to do, and allows her back in and then pushes her out at the same time. There's this push and pull dilemma with his character the entire time, and it's showcased beautifully through Daniel Day Lewis's face. I mean, his expressions are just amazing, and um, and it's very interesting knowing that this is Daniel Day Lewis's last film. I think it's very, in some respects, poetic, considering that character Reynolds Woodcock. I mean, what he ultimately represents is of someone who is disguising themselves, someone who is not wishing to be truthful to themselves, wishing to hide, wishing to ignore, and to basically be a fake version of themselves, um, and not having to listen to that true place, that true voice inside. And to some respect, I mean, it might just be pushing or just stretching, but the whole thing about Daniel Day Lewis being, the kind of actor that he is, being a method actor and having to go through those emotions and maintaining a certain space for so long. I mean, Daniel Day Lewis is known for having prep for like months and years at a time for roles. And he would fall to Great Depression after doing these roles, and Phantom Thread was no exception to that. So in some way, it's actually quite poetic in terms of a career end. It's like one of the rarest times where an actor, I think, really, and completely unintentionally, really seals their career, or like ends their career on such a high note, not just in performance, but just in, when you consider their journey as an artist. I think that it just brings it all to a very, very happy conclusion. But as a performance, though, it is remarkable. It is great. I think that he is just at the top of his game in this. I think he is just incredible in this film. Um, and to match that, I think that the aesthetics and the production design itself is just a thing of beauty. There are frames of this that stick with me, specifically that shot of them slow dancing with the balloons, or the shots of just Reynolds walking around, I think, are just beautiful. Him, like, driving shots, when he goes to that one gas station, and then he pops out of his car, he goes for a little walk. That one shot, and those, just the framework, again, just how some things could be off to the side, some things are dead center. Um, it's just very, very, very well crafted, very well, in a technical front, very, very well made. But it's a film that, I will say, as Becky Krebs said in the film in describing the relationship, there is a distance I will say that does apply into the emotional state of the film, because one of the things about Paul Thomas Anderson films that I've always taken issue with is that there isn't much of an emotional edge to his films. And I think that the best comparison to give to Paul Thomas Anderson would be that of Christopher Nolan, in that they're both relying upon their technicalities and the strengths of their performances to create a certain level of substance. And in Phantom Thread, there is a a large amount of substance, mainly to do with the performances at the center of it and the craftsmanship surrounding those performances, this production design, the aesthetics, the this tone that is established, which has this haunting yet familiar setting with this with it being a romance. There is these familiar feelings that are sprouted, mainly also with Johnny Greenwood's score amplifying those feelings, which is just chef's kiss. His score. I mean, it was my introduction to Johnny Greenwood, and Johnny Greenwood now being one of my favorite composers out there. Um, it's just an amazing, amazing score. Just a beautiful, elegant score. I still listen to some of it today. It's just a thing of beauty. Um, but emotionally, there isn't that much there to generate, and it's again similar to how I say with Nolan, in that there is a reliance to certain factors and not as much as on an emotional level. The key difference is that Nolan leans more on technicality, whereas Paul Thomas Anderson leans more on atmosphere, leans more on tone, leans more on a a feeling, and leaning on those feelings and leaning on that. I guess I guess you could say just like like with Nolan, with Nolan, I don't feel as much, but with Paul Thomas Anderson, I feel, but not necessarily in that I am emotionally invested. In that I'm more moved by what he is doing in the filmmaking. I guess that would be the key difference. Like his filmmaking has more expression than Nolan does, but it's not in that it creates emotion and that I feel a certain level of like tenderness or a certain bondage that is formed within the characters. It's a lot to do more with the individual elements that are happening on screen, with the performances, with the production design, with the cinematography, and with Paul Thomas Anderson and just weaving all these elements together, um, and the writing also being really really good. um, I, that's what I mean by it, is that is how he brings these elements together is where I feel more so in his films than I do with something like Nolan. So I'm not sure if I explained it well, but that's just the way I'll put it. But um, so it's a thing of beauty. It is very well acted. The aesthetic is just breathtaking. What Johnny Greenwood brings is terrific. It is just a really really solidly made film that has a, a haunting edge to it. It is properly a ghost story when you start to understand Reynolds Woodcock as a character. Um, it's it's also um, it's also just uh, like like I would use other emotional descriptions, but like I said, it just doesn't feel as though that, like I don't feel the impact, like I say haunting, but it's only by the nature of it, like how it's designed. But I don't feel that general wave of haunted, like I don't feel like I'm experiencing those emotions with Reynolds, if that makes any sense. I could feel and sense what he is going for by what he is crafting by tone, but it's not to where I am bonded to that character. It's just finding a description, finding a word, a definition for what I'm feeling, but not necessarily what I'm connecting to. So if that makes any sense. So by that, by what is being felt, there is a haunting edge to it. There's obviously a romantic side to it. There's obviously a toxic side to it. Um, so it's driven by that, and it's driven by its tone, it's driven by its performances, driven by its aesthetics, and they're all working at full capacity. It is just really, really great in that regard. Again, maybe not as emotionally involving, but it makes up for it in many other ways. And it's arguably my favorite of Paul Thomas Anderson's films because I just admire so much of the craftsmanship, so much of the filmmaking, and what those performances are bringing, that what I might not be getting on an emotional level is completely made up for what else is offering. So, so it is really, really good. And if you have not seen it, please check it out. I think it is just a great piece of Paul Thomas Anderson's art. Well, actually, I wouldn't say it's his best work. I would give that to The Master, actually. Um, Phantom Thread would definitely be number two, though. It definitely would be number two. I completely forgot about The Master for a second. Um, but yeah, The Master would definitely be number one. But Phantom Thread would absolutely be number two. So yeah, so check it out. It is really, really good. So. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on Phantom Thread. I really enjoy it. I really, really love this film. Forgive me if my thoughts are kind of not as well constructed. It's been a while since I've seen this film, and again, I just I'm just like trying to I'm making up for not watching Beautiful Boy, so excuse me, but I do remember really liking this film though. I did just revisit a scene just now, specifically that dinner scene, and it definitely confirmed a lot of my memory of what that film was. A lot about Reynolds as a character, the toxicities in their relationship, and generally what the theme of the overall film is about, which is about submissive behavior, getting to that place of honesty in a relationship. And while it's not emotionally involving by what else it's being driven by in its performances, technicalities, it's it's informative in that regard, and you are engaged in that front, but not emotionally charged. If that makes any sense. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on Phantom Thread. And this being Blind Tuesdays, I am not obviously at home, so I'll be spinning the wheel on my own time. So sorry, it's getting late. Whatever that category is that I end up picking or end up landing on, I will put it right here, and that's gonna be for next week's Blind Tuesdays. So there you guys have it. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on Phantom Thread if you guys have seen it. How does it stack up to Paul Thomas Anderson's work? I adore The Master. Nothing beats The Master. That is an amazing film. Best film I ever saw in that era of the 2010s. But Phantom Thread is not too far behind. Um, but you guys know all your thoughts. Paul Thomas Anderson, Phantom Thread, Daniel Day-Lewis, Vicky Krieps. I got to see more of Vicky Krieps. I've only seen her in this and Old also. I got to see more of her work too. But let me know all your thoughts on all these things: Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson, all of this stuff in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm gonna go take a nap now. So thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.